Hello, once again. I'm your host, Doc Rotten, and this is Horror News Radio, the official Gruesome Magazine podcast. Back with me again this week are the scariest, goriest, bloodiest co-host on the net, and by that I mean Christopher G. Moore, the award-winning filmmaker. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. I guess we can call this part one, the intro to the podcast.
Yes. I don't know what you mean by that. Oh,
No,
okay, yeah. I got you. Yeah.
Our movie has little parts.
It does. It has little title cards going through it. All right. We're going to review tonight The Long Night, coming from WellGo USA. So it is in theaters and digitally on February 4th, 2022. So yeah, it's the end of January already as we're recording this. As you're listening to it, it's already February. We're 1 month down, which the only good thing about that is that means we're 1 month closer to Halloween 2022. So there's that. Now we only have, I don't even want to get into it. It's depressing. All right. But let's get into this, shall we? So
Sure.
what we're going to do is we're going to give our initial impressions. That will be spoiler free. Then we'll get into discussion. We'll get into spoilers for this. We'll try to pull back a little bit, but kind of have to, because our favorite scenes are probably in the spoilers. And then we'll wrap things up with our final thoughts, our score 1 to 5, and our favorite scenes. Yeah. And for those who are still hanging out with us, we hope you enjoy not only this review, but many others that we have on the site. And if you want to help us out, it's free and easy to do. Hit the subscribe button down below, hit the like button, share with a friend, and we will thank you so much. Thank you. And of course, leave some comments down below. I love our comments. Thank you guys so very, very much. All right, let's check out this title card, shall we? Boop. Long Night from WellGo USA in theaters and digitally on February 4th, 2022. Synopsis is, while searching for the parents she's never known, New York transplant Grace returns to her childhood southern stomping grounds with her boyfriend to investigate a promising lead on her family's whereabouts. Upon arrival, the couple's weekend takes a bizarre, terrifying turn as a nightmarish cult and a maniacal leader terrorize the pair en route to fulfilling a twisted, ancient, apocalyptic prophecy. That's a lot. That's a lot. For a very little. Directed by Richard Ragsdale, written by Robert Sheppy and Mark Young. The cast includes Scout Taylor-Compton, Nolan Gerard Funk, Deborah Kara Unger, and Jeff. Yes. All right, let's find out what our first impressions are. Christopher, start us off.
I think that paragraph gave more information than I got from watching the movie. You know what? I mean, I could see what they're going for with this film. I mean, it's got some, I will say that visually it has a few cool cinematic moments it creates. But when it comes to the story and the characters, it kind of falls a little flat. I think it's almost a movie that takes itself a little too seriously and is trying to, it tries so hard to sort of create this spooky atmosphere that it's obvious it's trying too hard. I mean, it's really going above and beyond with this music that it plays throughout. Where it's like, whoa, and there's like these long shots of certain things to sort of, I guess, get you in the mood, but it's not warranted because it's not. There's nothing. There's nothing to me. There's nothing really. There might be like a few creepy parts, but it's overall, it's not scary. It's not spooky, and I mean, some of the imagery is kind of cool in a few parts, but in other parts, it's almost like the horror version of J.J. Abrams' school of lens flares. Yeah, but but the problem is there's parts where the lens flares are created by filters, and it's not in camera like Spielberg likes to do. At least as a filmmaker, I kind of noticed it to where it was like it was being overused a little bit much. I mean, and I think in them trying to create this story, they put all these different things. They have these cool spinning, rotating camera moves and these visual things of people standing in front of fire and stuff, which are kind of cool. But then it's like the story doesn't really, and they even like divide it up into chapters, like it's a book. And to me, every time it did that, it pulled me out of the movie. I think if you're going to build suspense, having a boom and then like a title come up, it feels very pretentious when they're doing that. And I think that's the main thing I came away. The film feels very pretentious, like they're trying to create something. I mean, it almost like it kicks a little bit more into gear later on when things start happening. And that's when it gets more interesting. But it's not interesting enough to make up for all this stuff we sat through before that. And I found myself yelling at characters' motivations and the certain things they're doing. It didn't make sense. I hate to say this, but like the main actress is almost like it's almost like a Alicia Silverstone light. It's and I didn't feel the chemistry between the two of them. And you have like an opening scene, and this doesn't really get anything away. You have an opening scene that really does nothing other than finding a phone. But you have them talking about a scene that happened, which there's this rift between her and her boyfriend that I think I would have rather seen that scene, and then we go on this trip, and that would have given more information, more foundation to the issues they have. So things like that, I think, were missed opportunities, and there's really not much plot, and then Jeff Fahey shows up in the middle of it, like almost feels like, oh, we got him as like a day player or something. We can get him into this. So we can have like a name and part of it. Although we do have another person that shows up that I've seen from other stuff, but I think Jeff Fahey's probably the biggest name that shows up. But yeah, overall, I it was kind of bland. You know what I mean? Yeah. And there really isn't a lot to it. And you can create all the different whiz bang, visuals in certain parts, and you can try to add all these different things and pay the coolest people to make the music for it. But if you don't have the story to back it up, it's wasted effort. And I think so there's a lot of things that made it kind of bland to me.
Yeah, kind of bland. That's an interesting way to put it. I like that. Yeah, I had a problem getting invested in this. So for me, I think you hit it right. There's no chemistry between our two leads. Was it Scout Taylor-Compton and who's the young man who
Nolan
plays
Gerard Funk?
Nolan Gerard Funk. I mean, each of them by themselves are good, but there's just no chemistry between the two of them. I didn't feel any urgency or any conflict or lack of conflict between the two. It just, they were just a pair, and they were supposed to be something there, and it never registered for me. I'm told it, but I never felt it. And it also, I don't think the backstory of her trying to find her parents was brought to life well enough to feel like, this was like an uncontrollable, quest for her, because there was many times where it just would have been smarter to leave, but she didn't. But we'd never, we're told that she's one, it's just, I never felt it. So there's something in here that's missing to really bring you in as an audience. And I think if you felt that, it would elevate the film a little bit. It just, like you said, the plot is a little thin bear. It's they're basically at this house and they're trying to find out things, and people show up and what's going on, and that's about it. So there's no real deep mystery to get into. It feels a bit obvious that what's going on. So the engagement of the film for me was incredibly small and diminished by the lack of these things that I'm talking about. At times there was some really cool shots. There's the cult with their little heads, their mask, their bone mask and horns and stuff look cool. And they're always fun. They're a little thin too. There's maybe 6 or 8 of them at one time at the most. And we've seen them before. There's the Void is something that was even, a little bit more spooky with their cult people outside, but less production value, right? They didn't have the masks. All they had was hoods, and they were creepier, right? Just the way they were presented and shot. So it lacks that. Jeff Fahey coming in is actually a highlight of the film. He actually it brings a little spark. There's actually some conflict. You're trying to find out what happened to the person that has the house that they're in that they were supposed to meet. And so there's some interesting things happen there. And of course, when he gets there, things actually start becoming a little bit more gelled, and instead of is it an imagination, is it a dream, is it hallucination, or is it real? And I mean, the thing it's got going for it too is I like Scott, easy for me to say, Scout Taylor-Compton. I like her in this role, and I like the ending. There's a thing about the ending that I really like. We'll get into in the spoilers, and that worked for me. And the design of the creatures or the cult people. Other than that, it's lukewarm at best. Yeah.
I didn't like Scout Taylor-Compton in this. I thought she was not good. I think she's just as bland as the story. I felt very disconnected by a lot of it. And it's like, I think the one thing that made me laugh is like they're trying to push this sort of spooky atmosphere. And there's a part where when they first go in the house,
mm-hmm.
and it's like, oh, this place looks creepy. I was like, there's high-end there's high-end appliances.
Yeah.
There's beautiful cabinetry. They have a beautiful fire pit out back, which I would love to have. What looks creepy about this?
It's well lit.
I mean, it's like, this looked better than their apartment in New York City or wherever they were. Yeah. I don't know. To me, there was like, you're really pushing past believability for me that this place is, other than maybe like a few skulls on the walls or something. But there was, and so things like that from the get-go, I'm like, I'm not sure about this. And yeah, I don't know. There's things like that. And then I don't know. They try so many different things. They have the tropes where they show up in town and then they go by the gas station convenience store and the people acting all creepy and stuff.
Gotta have that.
Yeah,
it's not a horror film if you don't have it.
I'm surprised it's like, that place is a death curse. But that didn't happen. But yeah, I don't know.
Let's just take a moment and let everybody know that we're in spoilers. If you didn't know that, we're done with our introduction, so now we're in spoilers. So we might give away some secrets if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, luckily I haven't said anything too. But yeah, I don't know. The story plods along for such a good amount of the movie.
It's a little repetitive too.
Well, yeah, it's very repetitive, and it's like, oh, there's like, she's possessed, or this thing comes up and just holding its hand for the 900th time, and it's like, okay, we get it. And then you have a Fahey's dead brother who's been in the house the whole time. There's no, unless I missed it, there's no explanation what his connection to any of this was.
No, he's just looking. Other than he was a detective looking into it, right? So
yeah, I don't.
If that.
But I really don't understand. Well, so the things like that, I don't,
I'm with you. There's a total lack of atmosphere. There's no, even when the cult's outside, you don't feel, any atmosphere, any threat. There's a couple times when they're out in the woods that they kind of accomplish it, but then that goes south with bright, shiny light things. Well, that's probably as much as we really want to say about that. But that was weird. And I don't know. I guess I never really got the angle of what we were trying to accomplish, right? Are we? I mean, outside of that, we're trying to find her lineage, right? But it's kind of obvious where that's going, and there's no really surprises, and there's no atmosphere or tension. So,
well,
yeah.
and I think a lot of it just happens that you just have these two people that show up at the house, and they're at the house. They don't, everything happens to them, but the only form of explanation is a book that shows up later on, where they just read through it, and this is what happens during the ritual, blah blah blah. Most of these films, like they connect with someone who lives near them or whatever. Not to say you should fall into that trope, but that would have been more interesting than just like, oh, this book fell off the wall. Let's read it. Oh, this explains why these people are doing this. And that's why I see snakes all the time. And that's why, so I don't know. There was like so much thing that it's so thinly plotted that, by the end of it, it's like, why did we sit through all this stuff? And then some stuff is like so drawn out. When they're driving in the very beginning, boom, they play this big bombastic music, wah, wah, wah. Ooh, this is so spooky, them driving through the woods, wah, wah, wah. Ooh, let me look outside the car at this weird thing on wah, 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 wah. And it's like, I feel like that went on for 30 minutes. It felt like it. And I was like, okay, get to the place, and they get there and it's just like it's like a nice house out in the woods. So I don't know. It's things like that just really kind of.
So here's a question for you, Christopher. This has bothered me. So the cult shows up and they surround the house, if you will. They're a little thin to surround the house, but let's just take it for granted they surround the house. But they do things, right? Well, they don't enter the house right away for whatever reason, and then they raise their hand and they cause weird things to happen. I really had a hard time kind of figuring out what their rule set was, right? Are they playing with our minds? Are they actually doing stuff? What are they doing? Because it was very unclear what they were capable of. So I wasn't really sure what the threat was, right? Because, they're creepy, but they're not really threatening. And they try to make them threatening by doing, these, raising their hand and doing mind tricky things to them, and their arms and snap. But did you ever get a gist of where this power came from, or what the power was, or why they had it, or what it was?
I wasn't sure if they were supposed to be like throughout a lot of it. I wasn't sure if they're supposed to be cultists or if they're supposed to be embodiments of these weird, I didn't know if they were supernatural creatures.
Spirits,
yeah, because these people could somehow pop inside the house all of a sudden, or pop into rooms all of a sudden. So how did they get there? So they have teleportation powers, and they have and then they have powers to sort of make you move around like a puppet. But then it's like, why does that only work half the time?
Why do they take so long to get in the house if they can do all that?
Well, it's like, if you could just teleport, why don't you just teleport everybody around them in a circle? And you're done. But no, we have to like let them chase down. And then they have the movie tries to do all these flashbacks that I'm not sure are flashbacks. I mean, I was kind of confused. You gave me some information before we were talking about this. I didn't realize that was what happened. So I don't know. I'm a little bit.
Well, I'm not entirely certain. I mean, that's what I got out of it. So there's room to discuss whether it was her or the mom. So.
Well, yeah, there's a moment I call the fleshlight moment.
Yeah, I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming.
That actually made me laugh out loud, because there's we're in Spoilerville, so there's just a light that comes out the woman's hoo-ha. That's like, what just happened? Well, I was like, it's bad enough I'm seeing all these lens flares. Now I have to see one come out of her genitalia, and I was like, what is happening? I mean, I will say it almost feels like they saw Mandy, and there's like elements of Mandy in this with some of the visuals.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some really cool visual stuff. There's there's overlaying of images, rotating and stuff that work. There's a really cool visual where the people are standing in the guy's framed within this weird totem
Yeah,
Which by the
fire.
by the way, I'm from the South. I've never heard of, ooh, that's redneck voodoo
Redneck voodoo
with totems or whatever.
There's your movie. There's your movie title, Redneck Voodoo.
So I don't know. I took offense to that. That we're from the South and we have totems. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Closer to the Appalachians you go. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I will say that there's a moment towards the end where it kind of switches and it goes off rails, but probably in a good way, in a more darker way that I kind of liked. And I wasn't expecting, because I kept expecting, oh, we're going to get like a fight back moment. And it didn't happen. I was like, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, I will give it this. I will congratulate them capturing the downbeat 70s ending. I loved it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and then that's when it went full folk horror moment. That almost felt, dare I say, like 80s Satanist type thing, you know. It you know, very like
you're trying to go to Satanic Panic here or whatever.
Well, yeah, sort of like that. But some of those movies that just had those moments that felt very like, okay, this is where we get the visceral part, because it's very kind of like, other than like glass and feet and stabbing stuff, there's really not a lot of blood. But then it goes full like extra, where it's like, oh gosh. So and that's when it got kind of interesting. It's like, okay, I was not expecting that.
A little too little, a little too late, maybe.
Well, yeah, you can't make up for all the time you spent just watching them, like, you know, run around the house and yell and scream, and not how to put a door in front of put a chair in front of a door to block it. Like that one scene where he puts it in, and the door opens up because he put it on it wrong, which I thought was kind of funny. I feel like some person from the city wouldn't know how to like block a door.
Yeah, that might be me. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Let's give our final thoughts, our score 1 to 5, and our favorite scene. Christopher, start us off, sir.
Well, the long night felt like a long night. To where you're waiting for that light at the end of the tunnel, and then you find out that light is from someone's genitalia. I know.
No.
Yeah, I didn't really. There's a lot of it's very, very paper thin, and how it sort of creates a foundation for everything, and then it tries to make up for that by a huge explanation moment involving a book. I didn't really see the chemistry between the people, and I didn't really care about the people as much, where I was like, oh, you guys deserve to die because you're idiots. And
you're on the short list. Get out of here.
Yeah, I was like, oh, just go ahead and kill them. I mean, this isn't like Cabin in the Woods where you care about the characters and you don't want them to die. But here it's like, okay, if a demon is going to spawn, it might as well, because that's going to be more interesting than these two yokels who go out in the woods.
There's your.
Yeah, I mean, I hate saying that, but I mean, really, I did not care for these characters at all. I mean,
not at all.
And again, I think screenwriting 101 is like, you have to give us an interesting window into who these people are, so we care about them when they go to some new location. And that they use it, instead of showing us a more interesting part in the very beginning, they just talk about it on the car there. Like, oh, well, you should have shown this when I was why didn't you show that at the beginning? That I would have been more interested in seeing the divide between the two, and how one minute he's saying, oh, I'll make sure everything's okay, and then the next thing not, you know. So then it would be more interesting. We understand these characters, you know, and that's what makes great horror, when you make us care about the characters, and you give us a peek into their lives and seeing how they are, and then you put them in these weird situations where they have to, you know, live or die. And to me, they were just so cookie cutter and not really interesting enough. And then you have these villains that don't talk at all, other than just hearing blah, blah, blah coming through the cell phones. And then when you do talk, it's at the very end.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, by the end, it's like, I mean, I think the most interesting character was the dead guy in the closet, because at least he felt like he had a glimmer of light, what used to be life in his eyes.
Oh wow, that's so sad.
I just think, I mean, and to me, the only interesting thing is a few of the visual flares. But again, I feel like they're put so much effort in trying to make this big and bombastic with the spookiness, and it doesn't work. You could put all the music you want over it. It's not going to make me care if there's not visuals or people that I care about that go along with it. Music, yeah, is very helpful in horror films. Hellraiser would be a whole lot less if not the music by Christopher Young. The Halloween, John Carpenter. But here it just felt excess. It's like a delicious steak, and you're gonna just throw. Here I'm going with food analogies, and you just throw dishwater on it. It doesn't work. So yeah, I don't know. As much as I like some of the cool, the only times where I was really enjoying it, it's like, ooh, that's cool. They did visually there, where they're spinning the camera or whatever. But it doesn't make up for. Sometimes the visuals can make me love a film, even if the story's kind of bare. I'm a huge fan of Tim Burton. That sometimes could be the problem. Some people call Mandy that, but at least put some passion into something. But there's not enough of those to make up for what this whole film's about. Just throwing it all in the last 20 minutes is not going to work for me. So
I'll tie West.
Well, this is not even a slow burn. This is just a. It's like they just lit it with gasoline and they didn't light it till the last 20 minutes. But by the time you're just taking in the fumes, getting giddy. that's I don't know. I need to shut up. Dig myself a hole.
What's your favorite scene? What's your score?
Well, let me give a score. Man. It's shot competently. It's got some, the cinematography is pretty good in parts. So I'll give it a 2.75.
Oh wow! Okay.
I'll be nice. It's I think the few visual flares, the few visual things that it tries to do in parts, put it above. More mediocre stuff,
above average.
And I sometimes will give things a little bit more attention or niceness rating wise if it does that. So, but it's still a little bit more closer to middle of the graph. Yeah. So I'll say 2.75, and then as for favorite scene. I know the obvious thing I'd probably say, but I'm sure that's probably the same scene as yours.
I don't know. Go for it. You never know. He's thinking. What are you gonna do? Oh no.
You know what? I think it's the demon birth scene.
Ooh.
Because it was so, or at least flashback to that. It's so visceral and gross and visually interesting, and a little bit uncomfortable to watch because the woman's like making all moaning sounds when it's happening. It's like, oh, bellies are getting cut open. So I for some reason but I will say, let me attach something else to that. There's a cool visual scene where two scenes are rotating with each other that I thought visually is really cool. So visually, that's probably one of a few just visual scenes that I liked. But yeah, I think something about that's when it sort of kicked into sort of full folk horror gear is when that demon birth happened.
Yeah, I need to do that a little more. So for me, the lack of caring for the people, like you were saying, you don't really get into these characters. The lack of atmosphere kind of, undermined some of the good work they were doing with cinematography and some of the character designs or the costume designs, I guess. And even that flaming symbol, I have no idea what that's supposed to be, but it looked cool when it was on fire behind that. You know, the one shot where the one master one was in front of it and had the fire behind it, you know, was that's always a good shot to do. It's kind of a no-brainer when you have that situation. So yeah, in the end, I was kind of let down by the movie. So I was giving it a 2.5, and I thought that was actually going to be better than yours, the way you were describing yours. But I was going 2.5, and I thought I was being generous. Because, like you said, I have a feeling that if you're not, if you don't see as many movies like we do, and you're not so critical of movies, because that's what we do, there's a lot more to like about this film. I have a film when it finally does make it. It's also part of Shudder, so it's going to make it to Shudder sometime later in the year. So when it does, I don't doubt it'll find an audience, but it's not me. Not me. My favorite scene is going to be the ending. Is that what you were thinking I was going to pick? I just like the whole, the final step choice that they did, and the whole downbeatness of it. And I don't know, as a child of the 70s, watching all those in the 70s, every movie seemed to have a downbeat ending. It's like, oh my God. And this one embraced that. So, and Jeff Fahey, let's give Jeff Fahey a golf clap, shall we?
Well, yeah, I mean, he was more interesting. I kind of wished he'd been one, like maybe him and like his girlfriend had went there.
Yeah, I kind of wish that, when something happens after he shows up, that the players were switched, that the other male player went out there and he was in the movie for the rest of it, because he wasn't.
Well, yeah, it's like those people cleared out pretty fast for him to show up like that. Yeah. So it's like, again, it doesn't make sense if these were just people wearing masks.
Yeah. But, and if he would have been, because he had a connection to the house, and we really didn't know much about the house itself other than that, this person was supposed to be there when they got there and he wasn't. It added some, immediate tension, right? Because now we got this guy saying, "What are you doing here? How do I know you talked to my brother or whatever," and everything. So there was an active conflict. So unfortunately, getting rid of him so fast, that just went up. Well,
yeah, because then it's like there's really no. It's really for the story. I mean, I guess in some ways it allowed them to find out the other person in the house, but still. There's not a lot of reason for a lot more to even show up.
Yeah, a lot more you could have done with that. A lot more.
Yeah. So there's opportunities to tell a better story in this.
It's fine. It's what it is. All right. There you go. That's our review for The Long Night. It is out February 4th, 2022 from WellGo USA. And like I said, Shudder is a part of this. So expect an announcement that it'll be on Shudder later in 2022 or early 2023. I would imagine 2022. And let us know in the comments down below what you think.
Yeah, I'm sure there's people probably might enjoy this a lot. Maybe they'll think, "Oh, guys are just overthinking it," which is fine. I guess it's definitely turn your brain off watching this.
Yeah. Well, if somebody accused me of that with this one, I wouldn't argue because I did. I got into it like, why, what, and.
Well, yeah, but that usually happens to me if I'm not invested in what's happening. That's when I become a little bit more nitpicky about things and more logical about decisions. And so, but maybe some people might be less apt to get like that watching this, and maybe they'll like it.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about it. If you're caught up in a moment, you won't think about it until later, like the drive home. You're going, that couldn't happen. All right, Christopher, thank you for joining me. As always, it's a lot of fun. Hopefully, we'll have some of our companions with us next week.
Yeah, hopefully they're not off standing in people's yards doing voodoo on people with totems.
Yeah, what redneck voodoo at that. All right, let's say good night.
Yeah, good night.
Good night.